the phenomenology of operational closure, by which a cell closes, or a me cell creates a bubble, or a cell in the prebiotic sea suddenly begins to have this formation of selfhood. So the whole notion of topology begins to be critical there. So the imagination of how space affects the architecture of incarnation is really important. One of my favorite metaphors is the metaphor from Dante, from the Paradiso, where after traveling through heaven and purgatory, he goes up to the top of the universe and comes to this dimensionless point by which everything hangs together. And he has this whole vision of the universe as a kind of enfolded sphere. Imagine sort of like our self before incarnation is a sphere that's a mirror inside that has no imagery, and there's just light reflected to infinity, and it is consciousness without an object. And then as that sphere moves through the discreteness of time and space, it has imagery impregnating it and generating facets and complexity, and turns itself inside out. And as it begins to reflect its experience with all the others there, it creates this kind of vessel of all these kind of dancing monads of Leibniz that create this sort of vision of a hypersphere that is more like the chalice or the grail. And so this kind of Dante's vision of the whole universe as a point that is a three-sphere is, I think, an incredible vision of topological complexity, where what Dante was really talking about is the architecture of incarnation using multidimensional spaces to describe it. So I think the whole new crossing that Brian's working on in bringing science and story and poetry and imagery together, I think enables us to go back to some traditional texts and say there are intuitions here that give us a new way of understanding the nature of consciousness and the whole delay space and the emergence of the ego. I want to close with a poem, because I really always want to emphasize that I'm basically just a bullshitter and a writer and don't know anything that I'm talking about, that I'm just borrowing from my friends. That when Mrs. Yeats went into automatic writing and gave Yeats the material for a vision, Yeats wanted to spend the rest of his life as a scholar and work on it, and the voices said, no, we have come to give you metaphors for poetry. And I feel that myself, my relationship with my friends in the Lindisfarne Fellowship is that basically I hang out with scientists because I'm looking for metaphors for poetry. And it's true that, yeah, there are poets in Lindisfarne like Gary Snyder, Kathleen Raine, Wendell Berry, but primarily they don't inspire me. They're just buddies and colleagues and friends. The people who really inspire me are the Jim Lovelocks and the Lynn Margulises and the Varellas and the Stuart Kaufmans. So taking this notion of the delay space and the consciousness without an object as a sphere, and the incarnate history of the story of the unfoldment of the enlightened mind is the hypersphere, the three-sphere, I want to close with a poem called The Pearl of Great Price. And the first part is just, in a typical sort of documenta art, is a structure, a collage of quotations about spheres and pearls from one end of history to the other, and then I end with a poem of my own writing, which actually, in a non-free verse way, actually happens to be a sonnet. A prologue from the tradition. 1. For he is equal in all directions unto himself, a rounded sphere enjoying a circular solitude. Empedocles. 2. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like unto a merchantman seeking goodly pearls, who, when he had found one pearl of great price, went and sold all that he had and bought it. Matthew, the New Testament, 13, verses 45 to 46. 3. When you go down into Egypt and bring back the one pearl which lies in the middle of the sea and is guarded by the snorting serpent, you will again put on your robe of glory and your toga over it, and with your brother, our next in rank, you will be heir in our kingdom. That's the hymn of the pearl, which is a Gnostic Manichaean text of the 3rd century. 4. When King Solomon penetrated into the depths of the nut garden, as it is written, I descended into the garden of nuts. He took up a nutshell, and studying it, he saw an analogy in its layers with the spirits that motivate the sensual desires of humans, as it is written, and the delights of the Son of Man are from male and female demons. Here's this emanationalist cosmology where these demons are the intrusion of mathematical domains in the motion domains into the meat domains. The Holy One, be blessed, saw that it was necessary to put into the world all of these things so as to make sure of permanence, and of having, so to speak, a brain surrounded by numerous membranes. The whole world, upper and lower, is organized on this principle, from the primary mystic center to the very outermost of the layers, of all the layers. All are coverings, the one to the other, brain within brain, spirit within spirit, shell within shell. The primal center is the innermost light of a translucent subtlety and purity beyond comprehension. That inner point extended becomes a palace, which acts as an enclosure for the center and is also a radiance translucent beyond the power to know it. That's Rabbi Moses de Leon in 1305. 5. O earth, you mar a gem past praise, my secret pearl without a spot, from the Pearl Poet in 1400. 6. The center of the universe is everywhere and the circumference nowhere, which is Nicholas of Cusa being picked up by Giordano Bruno. 7. The ultimate reality, because neither one nor many, concord nor discord, is symbolized as a phaseless sphere, which is from W.B. Yeats's mystical vision. 8. Be indigestible, hard, ungiving, so that living within you beget self, out of self, selfless, that pearl of great price, which is from H.D., from The Walls Do Not Fall. 9. Perhaps universal history is the history of the diverse intonations of a few metaphors, which is Jorge Luis Borges' Pascal Sphere. And I'll end with my own poem as answer to that tradition, called The Pearl. The grit within the softest Dardan flesh is brutally conceived, hard a Chian sand, whose thrusted sword turns artifact and mud we store with memory in our acquiring lives. Around the still unshining pearl, the dark defends itself with slime for all its worth. If I could teach my breath to stop, I might lift the fastened oyster from its rock. I can imagine monsters to prevent me from sensing in that blinding cyclopean eye the smeared reflection of multiply dying lives and the unmistakable rank engendering smell of ripped open stars whose gaseous shards grafted us in flesh of earth's evolving fire.